You know, the great Rush Limbaugh was a dear friend of mine and a mentor. Once said to me, and I never forgot it, never underestimate the intelligence and knowledge of your audience. Never. Because one day it'll catch up with you. You are the smartest audience of any audience, TV or anywhere else. And that's why you're here on a Sunday evening when you could be doing something else. And that's why when I talk to you as smart people. I don't talk down to you. I don't use bumper sticker labels. I talk about substantive things and have substantive guests. And tonight, especially. First, a little history lesson as I set the stage for a further point. The American Revolution. What's that have to do with anything? Everything. We would not have won the American Revolution without the help of the French. And the French paid dearly in treasury. As a matter of fact, they went broke after they helped us during the Revolutionary War. As pointed out by History.com, the French had recently been dealt a humiliating defeat in the 7 Years' War by the British and stripped them of their own North American empire, including Canada. But still, they were loath to declare war on Britain as an official American ally. King Louis XVI permitted secret aid to America's cause beginning in May 1776. And the two most powerful men at the court within the monarchy, they had a dispute over whether to commit to supporting America outright or not. But eventually they did. After we won the Battle of Saratoga, in October 1777, one of our few victories, by the way, the French Foreign Minister, Charles Grivier, had decided that the French should enter the war 1 month earlier, after the fall of Philadelphia to the British control in September 1777. And that frightened him into thinking that the Patriots would give up without overt French aid. So starting in 1778, right to the end of the Revolutionary War, the French gave us support. 90% of all what I'll call bullets fired during the War of Independence were manufactured by the French. What turned out to be the final battle was the Battle of Yorktown. And the Franco-American forces that had been fighting together fought General Cornwallis, who was a brilliant general, an experienced general of the British. And the French fleet cut off the waters to a smaller British navy because the British thought that we would still be up in New York, given some of the tactics used by Washington to fool them. And the British Navy not only cut off the British ships, but pounded the encampments of the British. And eventually Cornwallis surrendered. He surrendered his 18,000 troops, and that war for independence was over. Couldn't have been won without the French. The Ukrainian people are fighting to maintain their independence and their liberty. They did not attack Russia. They have not invaded Russia. They have not sent up concentration camps in Ukraine where they're bringing Russian children and women. They not entered Russia and have committed acts of systemic torture, which the Russians have to the Ukrainians, gang rape, hanging people from ceilings and bridges, brutal genital castration and electric shock treatment, decapitation, burning people alive, crushing their faces with sledgehammers, mass graves. This is from a UN report, and the UN is hardly in the back pocket of the United States and Ukraine. And it just came out. And of course, the Russians are trying to freeze the Ukrainians by hitting energy sources. They're trying to level their apartment buildings. 25% of the Ukrainian population has had to flee as refugees. And as I said, many are being trained into Russia and being enslaved, tortured, and otherwise brutalized. Ukraine isn't doing any of that. Russia took over part of Georgia in 2008. Russia took over Crimea in 2014. Crimea was part of Ukraine. They did it in 5 days. Nobody lifted a finger to help either Georgia or Crimea. Finland, which was neutral during most of World War II, is not neutral anymore. Finland wants to get into NATO, and Finland supports the Ukrainians and is providing them with whatever equipment they have. Why? Because they know Putin has designs on Finland. How do they know that? because a year and a half, Putin said so. A year and a half ago, he said so. He also has designs on Poland and Romania and Moldova. How do we know that? Because he said so. Why don't we listen to the man? 2 world wars started in Europe, and we took no action until it was too late. We don't have any troops in Ukraine. We don't have any jet fighters in Ukraine. All we're doing is providing them with the support, kind of the support the French gave us during the Revolutionary War. However, the French actually did more. I am perplexed by those who want you to believe, and who believe you are stupid, that this is a war here in the United States between the intellectual elites in Washington and everybody else, we the people. And it's funny that so many people who say this went to private schools and Ivy League schools, and they never went to war while they're pointing fingers at everybody else. And there's a lot of people who haven't gone to war that have turned out to be tremendous leaders, great leaders. Or maybe they dipped their toe in a particular war and didn't do much else, and yet they were great leaders, Lincoln being among them. So that's irrelevant. Do you think if we were to withdraw all aid from Ukraine, that suddenly we would secure the southern border under the Biden administration? How stupid is that? Or suddenly inflation would be reduced? That's even dumber. Or suddenly all things bad Biden and Biden Democrats would turn around, but for what we're doing with Ukraine? Why do people make such imbecilic arguments? And have you also noticed something else? These folks claim to be neutral. They're not neutral. They trash Zelensky. They claim he's some kind of neo-Nazi, even though family members were killed during the Holocaust and he's Jewish. Neo-Nazis? Have you noticed they don't say anything about what Putin is or what Putin does to his own people, to the people in Ukraine? You notice they don't quote Putin when it comes to these statements he made a year and a half ago? You notice what they don't tell you? And I tell you because you're the smartest audience of all audiences. NATO dismisses Russian demand to withdraw from Romania and Bulgaria. Did you know that during the negotiations before Russia invaded Ukraine, they insisted that Romania and Bulgaria leave NATO? People keep talking about our insisting on countries go in. Well, they said, no, we're not going to leave NATO because they're scared of the Russians. Russia had deployed 127,000 troops near Ukraine's border at the time. Russia said, we're not invading. No. They deny any intention of invading Ukraine. And most of the Putiniks in this country, and Putinoids and mouthpieces for Russia, agreed with them. I guess they were wrong, wouldn't you say? The Independent of England, not just about Ukraine, why Romania is one of Kiev's strongest supporters in the Russia dispute. Why? Why is Romania, of all countries? We must be prepared for any possible scenario, says their president. This crisis is not just about Ukraine's security on the Black Sea or European security, but about the security of Euro-Atlantic area. You know who has designs on the Black Sea right now? Putin. That's why he took out our drone. But he's been harassing all of our jets over the Black Sea. Communist China wants the South China Sea. Putin wants the Black Sea. Think about it. Fox, senior Russian official threatens Polish borders as Moscow mounts aggression against other European nations. Well, what is this about? Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, remember him? Issued a direct threat against NATO after he called on Moscow to push Western defenses outside of Ukraine and across the borders of Poland. Just a month ago. Why are we ignoring this? Exclusive. This was the other day. Russia's secret document for destabilizing Moldova. All these European press outlets have access to this document, as do we. Yahoo News obtained it. It's an internal strategy. Putin's presidential administration reveals Moscow's plans for Moldova. It's a small country, about 2.5, 3 million people, and he wants to take it over. And he's pushing a coup. He's pushing unrest through pro-Russian militia, Russian-speaking peoples, and that's what he's done in these other countries. Black Sea will become totally ours, Russia-appointed governor says. Pay attention to what these people are saying. The Black Sea, which is bordered by 2 European countries, Bulgaria and Romania, as well as Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova, Russia, and Turkey, is of strategic and economic importance to Moscow, largely because of the transit routes it provides. I want to clap, and we will have the Black Sea too, said the governor of this area, appointed recently by Putin, We have it, but it'll be totally ours. He referred to an address given previously by Putin in which the Russian president spoke about what special attention is now being paid to Russia. Quote, development of the new rival, the restoration and full inclusion, not only legally, but also physically, with all our natural riches, with all our recreation facilities, hundreds of kilometers of beaches, hundreds of thousands of hectares and fertile land and so forth. Wow. But we're the warmongers? No. Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, North Korea. How can you be an American firster and keep accusing America of being warmongers? Oh, it's the elitists versus the people. I'm sick of elitists telling us they're part of the people when they're elitists who spend most of their time on the East Coast, especially in Washington, D.C. And our military budget has been going down, 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 down. Does that sound like a nation that's a warmongering nation? Do you believe Americans are warmongers? And what about our businesses? They're under attack too. No. Not the ones that should be. I'm talking about those defense contractors. We're supposed to hate them too because, you know, they're just making money out of this. Those defense contractors are developing the technologies, the cutting edge technology that we need to defeat the enemy and protect our soldiers in the field and our airmen in the sky. Where do you think the jets come from? The other weaponry comes from? Where do you think lasers come from and radar comes from and GPS systems come from? Why would we be attacking patriotic, pro-American companies that are doing what we ask them to do? So good that the Chinese and Russians keep trying to steal their technology. They're the ones pushing us into war? Well, name them. Who exactly? At Lockheed Martin or General Dynamics? Who's pushing us into war? Which one? Which members of the board of directors? Please tell us. Please tell us. Because as far as I'm concerned, I can't see any. Under the Biden budget, we warmongers, you know. The Environmental Protection Agency gets a 19% increase. The National Science Foundation, 19%. Treasury, 15%. Agriculture, 14%. Education Department, 14%. Health and Human Services, 11%. State and USAID, 11%. Labor, 11%. Commerce, 11%. Interior, 9%. Energy Department, 9%. NASA, 7%. Justice Department, 6%. Defense, 3%. Doesn't even keep up with the rate of inflation. It's an effective cut while all this is going on. And of course, China, Iran, North Korea, we decide that this is just a territorial dispute or that we should just get out of here. You know, it's just costing too much money and so forth. They won't read anything into that. Our surrender in Afghanistan, they read everything into it. But a surrender in Ukraine, when the Ukrainian people are fighting, that won't affect anybody. That'll be just fine. I read some of these statements from some of these Republican candidates, some which were very good, some not so in my view. But one thing I notice is very little is said about Russia and Putin and their threat to us, and they're making threats against us, and their threat to Eastern Europe, and eventually Western Europe, and their threats of nukes, and all the other things that they're doing, the access between Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, which is real. I didn't see a lot of that in their statements. It's time for leaders to step up. I don't care what they say on MSNBC and CNN. This is not a battle between rhinos and the populists, whatever that means, and they can't even define themselves. This is a battle between patriots and conservatives.
Want to see more Mark Levin? Go to levintv.com and subscribe now.